Okay, welcome to episode 90 of the Never Iron Anything Comics Review podcast. Back once again is the penguin herder himself. Yes, to many, he is the main man. It's Al Henderson. Hello, babes, you all right?
Greetings, I'm all good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. So, we were just moaning at each other a few minutes ago about the lockdown's dragging now, isn't it? It's we're getting used to this working from home malarkey. You know.
Yeah. I've got my date for my second vaccine now, so
have you? Oh, good man.
Yeah. It's a couple of Sundays time and I'll get it. So
yeah, I'm double jabbed now, so I've just gone out shagging around. You know, so it's worked. I wish good. So you still reading loads of comics? Because I know you're saying
yes. I must admit one of the books that we've been reading tonight or for tonight is dragged with me a little bit to work through it. So that's caused me some of that. But so yeah, I'm keeping up to date with what's coming out on a regular basis at the moment from the DC Batline, I suppose.
Okay, yeah, I get you.
But it's getting me through. Yeah.
Yeah, good man. Yeah, they're pumping them out at DC, aren't they?
Yeah, some good, some mediocre.
Yeah, which we will get to in a minute. Well, I messaged you and said I'd read something. You said, "Why the fuck did you read that? What have I told you?" That's how we go. Good. Okay, so what have you chosen for us to talk about tonight, Mr. H?
Well, I was going to suggest that we should read a biography comic. And then I thought, you know what, feels giz, we really should discuss the main man, the fragging Bastich, who is the assassin of royalty. And you know what, if the geeks, wimps, dweebs and weenies, or those with a delicate constitution don't like it, well, they can go and bite me, fanboy.
Excellent.
So finally, it's time to talk about Lobo, the last Caesarian.
Yes, finally Lobo. Not Lobo's back. That's later. We might mention it. But let's say Caesarian. Is that how you're saying it? Caesarian?
I think so. It's, you know, there's a bit of me that likes to think it possibly could be a mild joke of saying it's the last Caesarian.
Yes.
But I think it's Caesarian, the way that there's an extra N in there. But,
I'm going to agree with you and then try and avoid saying it for the rest of the episode because I will get it wrong.
Well, it's the problem with a number of these space opera type storylines where they name all the planets and then you're like going, how on earth did they come up with some of these names?
I know. Yeah. Fucking Durlac. I hate it. Good. So let's start from let's do your origin of him. Where did you first read him? Because I'm guessing, just sort of trying to judge your age, you may have hit him pre this, I'm guessing. Is that right?
No. While you're right, I could have had the opportunity. So he first appeared in the Omega Men.
Yep.
But no, I wasn't reading the Omega Men. So this literally would have been the first time that I would have picked it up. Straight off the shelf, back in Forbidden Planet Edinburgh, or Science Fiction Bookshop Edinburgh as it would have been called at the time.
Yeah. Way
back in 1990. Now, probably the main reason I would have picked it up is actually because it's written by Alan Grant, and Alan Grant was the Bat writer of the day, and thoroughly nice guy.
Yeah.
So I would have picked it up because of that, and then it became the big hot ticket as well at that point. So everybody was reading Lobo.
Yeah, it was pre-Wizard magazine, wasn't it? I think I sort of worked it out the other day. I heard someone say it, and I thought, well, let me check that out. It's pre-Wizard. So it's pre that hype hotness, but it was definitely the hotness, wasn't it? There's an element of if this came out from Image, you'd have probably thought, oh, okay, wouldn't you a bit? I think at the time it was an unusual book.
It's weird because it was never meant to be a big thing,
right?
And certainly, if I suppose a little bit of extra history here. So,
yeah.
Lobo joined Legion,
yes.
Which Legion had had come out of the Invasion storyline.
Yes,
and Legion it's nothing to do with the Legion of Superheroes. That was just DC trying to play on the fact that it had the title it could use. It was the Licensed Extra Governmental Interstellar Operatives Network.
Good, nicely done, sir. Yeah.
And Lobo became part of Legion, and then this storyline is essentially a Legion storyline.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
So it could have as easily just been part of that ongoing series. And had it been, I probably would never have read it at that point. But this was very much created as a parody of a lot of the other books, and it was just meant to be a joke that was, and there's some great humor in it and some great throwaway in it. But for some bizarre reason, it just grabbed the zeitgeist of the time and said, yeah, this is what we want to be, and I think that some of that ties up with what else was happening in the entertainment world at the time, because this is it's
very metal, isn't it? And WWE,
sort of stuff, and it has that sort of feel about it. And as I say, it pushes the boundaries as far as any mainstream book could go, while remaining without crass and having, I say, a level of humor that probably is above a lot of the people that were reading it. And there's a scene towards the end that truly is outright satire that I think a lot of people would miss, or certainly a lot of Americans would miss, because they're the way it's presented.
Let's reverse into this. So let's just give a quick potted history of where he came from. So Lobo, first appearance, you're right, Amiga Men 3, 1983, which is 7 years before this. So it's quite a long time.
And he's a very different character.
He is, very much so. Yeah, created by Roger Slipher, and Keith Giffen. Allegedly, Giffen claimed he was created as an indictment on the Punisher Wolverine type of dark hero that was happening at the time. And if you look him up on YouTube, you'll find there's a video of Stan Lee smiling at the camera and claiming Lobo was his favourite DC hero, which did make me laugh. I remember I read him in Amiga Men, and then I was reading Legion as well. And I just... To be fair, when I first started reading him, I thought nothing of him. I just thought he was this Wolverine, like space Wolverine that they were ripping up, sort of using for a bit of a laugh. And you're right, and he was an interesting character in both books, especially in Legion. And we'll talk a bit about that, because that's very much at the centre of the story. It's almost the MacGuffin, isn't it? Reason for it. And then this book came out in 90, which is a significant time past. Did you want to give the creative team out, dude?
So the creative team it's plots and breakdowns by Keith Giffen.
Yeah.
Script by Alan Grant, and then the art is by Simon Bisley.
Yes.
It always interests me when we hear things like plot and breakdowns by somebody, because I'm not entirely sure what the proportions are.
Yeah.
And if my take on this is that Giffen probably came up with a very simple A to B storyline, and Alan Grant did an awful lot of the writing, but there's bits in the artwork where you can really see that it's it's obviously Bisley that's drawn it. Some of the panels are not in a layout that he would normally use, or a style that he would take. There's
such a lick of almost trencher style Giffen in this. There's the mark of that, which I know came later. But there's a real Giffen, and Bisley himself says that a lot. He says that it was laid out for him.
I was going to say, very much the pacing is not what you would expect to see from a Bisley.
Yeah.
So that layout bit is definitely given all the pacing side.
Yeah, I saw an interview with Bisley, and he said this was the three parts of the triangle. Giffen gave the anger, Bisley gave the humour, and Grant gave the darkness. I thought, okay, that's a weird combo. Yeah. He kept saying, Giffen can be quite an angry person, which is genius. I kind of like the idea of it being Giffen rather than being Bisley in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This dude. And the other person, let's mention the colorist and the letterer as well. So we had, just finding the page, we had Lovern Kinziarski as colours and Todd Klein in letters, lovely Todd Klein. And we'll talk a bit about the colour in this, because it's dealt with quite differently to a lot of what people would probably imagine in a comic book these days. It's almost like flat colours, I think. I feel it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and very, this is a very punk book.
Yes.
Maybe that's...
Yeah, no, you're right, man. Yeah, there's a bit of DIY about it, isn't there? Yeah.
And a lot of the colouring really plays into that as well, in terms of the the bright pinks and other choices. Yeah.
What sort of age were you when you read this?
So 1998, I would have been 18.
Okay, so ideal. Yeah, that's pretty good. Anything from sort of 14 to 21, I'm guessing it was a good age for this. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, as I say, and it's a proper slap in the face book. But it gets in about it. Things happen. Jokes are told both in words and visuals, and it has a constant pace to it in terms of the storyline, with flickers of bits where it really slows itself down when it reflects back to the home bases, and it's just really well told. And there are, as I say, there are things that happen in this book that could not happen today.
Yes.
Certainly not in the DC universe, I don't think.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think the thing for me is I always think back on, if you think of I kind of think of a Bisley comic outside of Slain. I think of a Bisley comic as being just a mess, really, of like just lots of cool images, Yeah. But this has got a defined structure to it, isn't it? And I put that down to Giffen and Grant, because they know what they're doing. Did you want to just give a little overview of what happens?
So the simple overview is that we keep talking about how Lobo's defined. I saw him described somewhere as he's Wolverine crossed with Han Solo.
Right. Okay.
So this is very much playing to the Han Solo side of his storyline, if you like, where he's given a task by Virl Dox, who's in charge of the Legion, to basically go and bring back a prisoner. And the prisoner must be brought back alive. And the storyline then follows through to say that while doing so, Lobo finds out that there has been a biography written about him.
And he's not happy. Yeah.
And he's not happy. And it turns out that the prisoner that he's to bring back and must be brought back alive is the author of said biography. And to really spin it, she's his third grade teacher. As well. Was it third or fourth grade? Anyways, it doesn't matter.
And also the last Zarnian as well.
Yes.
Because he up to that point had killed them all.
Zarnian.
Yeah.
Yes. So it turns out he's not the last Zarnian because she's still alive. And he'd hated being in her class in school.
Yeah. And he's got this code, isn't he? So he's got a code that says he will always honour a job. And that's what he does to the letter in this, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the setup in issue 1. We should have said this is a 4-issue miniseries as well. The other 3 issues thereafter are essentially him getting the teacher back to the home planet of Legion so that she can be dealt with by the authorities. Yeah. And in the process of doing that, Lobo basically upsets a bunch of truckers who then start following him. He kills the chief of police somewhere, so the police SWAT team start following him, tracking him down. The biography has become a #1 best-selling hit across the universe. However, because of the distasteful nature of the biography, the Legion of Decency are hunting down the
very much in the public consciousness at the time in America and England at the time, wasn't it? Because there was these little bands of old ladies, mostly, let's say, Christians, who would, take great objections to anything that, was like Doctor Who or something, wouldn't they? Or metal music or something like that.
And this entirely plays on that. And as I say, the satire at the end is the big payoff with them. And they're basically chasing them down. And at the same time, the Sons of Lobo, who are basically a biker gang by any other name, who have decided that they like the main man and they're going to look after him, they kind of just tag along as well, just to see what's happening. And it becomes this basically a chase movie of all those people. It's Smokey and the Bandit, isn't it? Essentially, where it's him going along and he's being chased by all these other people.
So now he does stop at one point to watch the ballet. It's typical Lobo, isn't it? It's not, it's just it's not Thunder Road, is it? He doesn't stop off to go to the valley, though he does ultimately enjoy it. Yeah, that's true.
To be very clear, it's not it's a different type of ballet. And actually, they start chasing him down as well. Actually, the ballet team, those that are left behind.
Yeah,
and it just becomes that big chase thing, and it's just a good fun comic at that point. And it's not good clean fun, but it's good fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's he has to keep calling back into Vril Docs, and they have a a sort of caustic, problematical relationship where Vril Docs has bested Lobo in some way. I can't remember what it was. It happens in the Legion book, and so Lobo is in his debt and must do what he says. They sort of had this bet, and because he doesn't welch on a bet, Lobo has this thing going on. The other thing that's worth mentioning here is this is where they changed Lobo's origin. So he was previously, when it explained in, I think in the Omega Men issues, he was a Velorpian, and his people had been some kind of psychic war or something, and his people had been killed. But they completely changed that, and in this, his origin is part of the story, obviously. So we get this new origin of him, who's more sort of grounded in this.
Yeah, and this is the first time as well they probably have what is become the definitive costume for Lobo.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
We should point out that when he first appeared in the Omega Men, he was in an all-in-one lycra suit.
Yeah, he looks like a Starlight Express or something like that, didn't he? Is that sort of look to him? Yeah, very strange.
Not only that, it's in peaches and oranges. So it properly is wrong. And then slowly but surely he moves into this leather jacket, biker type gear, and by the time we get to the last Caesarnian, it's the full blown chain around the arm, big knee pads, great big. I mean, some of this is obviously Bisley's style in terms of doing the big biker boots and all that sort of stuff, but this is then him, and that's the style and design that he's had ever since, I think.
Yeah, and very much changed. He's got this famous hook that he's got. He's even got a kind of a cool biker style space bike that he has as well. I suppose the other thing we should talk about is his powers, because they kind of change a bit, don't they? At one point he can just be in a bar fight, and the next thing he's toe to toe with Superman. So I think, as with characters, I think of the time like Ambush Bug, they use him as they need to use him. I think, So in this,
original.
Go on, man. Sorry.
I was going to say, in his original powers as well, the concept was that with a Caesarnian, if they drop any drop of blood, can create a clone of them. And there's a very funny set of that appears in the Greatest Hits book, set of episodes where he appears with the Justice League or Justice League International set, the Boahaha version of Justice League, where it's very much about, you've got people like Big Barda running around going, whatever you do, don't hit him, don't make him bleed, and this whole attack of not, trying to fight him without actually making him bleed, because that would mean there'd be two of them and so on and so forth. But yes, he has full regenerative powers and all that.
He does actually go to heaven at one point, so he does get killed. I think it's in Lobo's back, him and another creature or combination of creatures sort of just machine gun each other to nothing, and he ends up going to heaven, and heaven doesn't want him, so he's back on Earth. So he's kind of unkillable as well, isn't he?
Yeah, because, and again, it was with the Alan Grant run in the Demon. Storyline. Lobo and the Demon used to come together quite a lot, and part of that was that Lobo ends up in hell at one point, and they want rid of him as well. It's there's the whole he gets chucked out of both places. So yes, he is essentially unkillable because neither of the other places want him. Yeah,
exactly. And he's that irritating, and he's drawn as that irritating, and that dislikable, and he's just utterly sort of headstrong, and he's a force of nature, basically, isn't he, in these comics?
He has a soft spot.
Yeah, this is for the barmaid, isn't it?
Well, no. For the space dolphins.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Right? Which, he treats them like his pets, and there's this pod of space dolphins that he does lots for. A number of the tasks he's doing so that he can raise money to make sure he's getting the food for the space dolphins.
Yeah. A couple of other things about Lobo. So it was almost a Guy Ritchie movie. Guy Ritchie was actually developing it for a couple of years. It was he became increasingly crazy, I think, as things went on. Like you said, we had the paramilitary Christmas special. We had,
which, as I say, when we're just cutting in that point. You talk about the movie and you talk about the paramilitary Christmas special. You should look up on YouTube Lobo paramilitary special, because there was a fan-made
film. Oh, this is
film.
the fan one you mentioned. I haven't seen this yet. Yeah.
It's very, very good. For and it only runs about 10 minutes. We should be clear about the storyline of that, because that probably is a proper high point.
Okay.
Essentially, that's, with him being a hired hitman at times, he gets hired by the Easter Bunny to kill Santa.
Right. Yeah.
Because Santa is a slave driver who basically owns all these elves as slaves, and it turns out that Santa's not a particularly nice guy. So
it is whatever they fancied, really, whatever madness they could come up with. At one point, this is probably very, very 2021. He becomes a lady for a while, doesn't he? In Lobo's back, and then he meets Death from, which I did laugh. I only just saw it again. He meets Death from Death: A High Cost of Living, and licks her, which I thought was hilarious. He's have you read? I haven't read this. Lobo Cop. Have you read that?
Yes, I will have done back in the day. It'll be in the loft in a box, I'm afraid. I have no recollection of it, but yeah.
Yeah, we've got Blazing Chain of Love, which is pretty cool as well. And Kevin O'Neill drew him as well. We were just talking about that before we came on, but Kevin O'Neill drew him in one that's sort of about conventions, which is pretty cool.
And I think what we're highlighting here is the fact that he was a character throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s where he was a constant, and they would always go back to him. He had his own series that ran for, 40 issues,
I think
somewhere in that region.
Yeah.
But I think he was always at his best when they were probably doing the miniseries and one-shots, and, everybody who was in it, he appeared in all sorts of books. He was one of these, these characters that appeared all over the place. And this to me is I'm not surprised that they thought about doing a movie of him, because he was DC's Deadpool long before Deadpool.
Long before we got this accent, we got this funny Deadpool, didn't we? Yeah.
And he did, everything that Deadpool does now, Lobo did before, and in a 1980s or 1990s way, but it was he did it before.
I agree, man. And I think there's a real strength of humour in this. That is, you hear both Grant and you hear Giffen in it as well. To me, there's just to mention a couple of the other things he did. He crossed over with The Mask and The Authority. I read The Authority one again the other day. That's pretty nuts as well. Lobo the Duck was obviously the crossover, which is all right. He's in a novel by Alan Grant I read called Last Sons, which is pretty good as well. He was dealt with very well, and we have this theory this is the last time he was dealt with well in the 52, the series 52, which is pretty good. A lot of dolphins in that one as well, and he was also a Red Lantern, believe it or not. That's
when I start to get a bit sketchy on some of it in terms of the where he's been since. But
Giffen describes him as the high violence poster boy, which I think is quite a good little phrase, and perhaps explains in that phrase why we don't see so much of him.
Very much.
Yeah. He's been in various TV versions. So he was in Superman the Animated Series. He was in, what's the one that's not the Teen Titans but them slightly older? What's that one? Young Justice. He's in Young Justice. And he's in Krypton Series 2. And actually well done. He looks the part. He's this sort of violent. Did you see any of that, man?
To be honest, I've seen the clip for it.
That's what I've seen. In the woods. Yeah.
And that looked great. I love him in Teen Titans, where he's the PE teacher at the school that all the
I haven't seen that one.
Go to. That's the and because he appears in a couple of the comics for that as well, drawn by Art Balthazar.
Oh, those ones are like. Is it Tiny Titans? Is that right?
Tiny Titans?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. To me, this is what Wolverine kind of should have reached towards. I think Wolverine's been a bit sort of neutered in recent years, but to me, Lobo's got that Wolverine quality and is prepared to be that biker drinking in bars. Wolverine just seems to sit on roofs of houses drinking beers with Kitty Pryde or someone these days. I know you're not a big Marvel guy, but
I was going to say, but see, I never saw Wolverine as having the humour that Lobo had, and part of that is maybe it's that I just don't care. Wolverine always has a little bit of a desire to be accepted. Yeah. Or certainly the way it's portrayed a lot in the X-Men, as you say.
Yeah, it is now. He never used to, but I agree. Yeah.
And it's Lobo really doesn't, as he cares for nobody other than the space dolphins, and therefore he'll quite happily, if somebody comes up with the money for him to go and assassinate or have a fight with whoever, then he'll go do that. And as you say, once he has a contract, he'll stick to it.
Yeah.
And see it through. And that is that whole, as you say, he's more than Wolverine in that way, or he's maybe less than, he's narrower than Wolverine, but the narrowness means he sticks to that characteristics and sticks to that characterization of being, just the relentless force.
Yeah.
And you can just have nothing but humour that comes with that as a result, if you wish to play it that way.
Yeah, humour and violence is a weird area these days, isn't it? It used to be in our faces in 2000 AD and toxic and, black and white breakout magazines. And, we used to see it all the time. We don't see it perhaps as much in mainstream comics anymore, do you think?
And yes, I would agree with you there. Certainly in mainstream comics, certainly in the core universes, as it were.
Yeah.
DC might do something like this time around, but put it in the Black Label piece.
That's what I was going for, man.
This was continuity.
Exactly.
This is continuity is presented here, and is treated as such. Given that Legion was a major continuity book for the DC universe at that point.
Yeah.
So I think this would very much be treated as it's a standalone piece over there. But there's sections of this book where it is just gratuitous violence just for the sake of it.
Yeah. The other reason, just before we go off on a tangent there, Geese, is the other reason I said Black Label is because if you look at this, there's no Comics Code Authority on it.
No.
Yeah, which leads you into the Black Label stuff. And I think, well, let's leave to the end. Have a think. Let me put this in your mind now. Who would you like to see doing it now? And then we'll maybe discuss that towards the end. But yeah, no, I completely agree. And you're right, there is. That's what it is. I mean, he absolutely eviscerates people in this, doesn't he? Just for comedy value, really. Yeah. Do you think that was the 2000 AD influence somehow? Do you think there was a bit of that in there?
I do wonder if this book would have happened without the British second invasion, if you like.
Yeah.
To the, I'm one of these people who really believes that Alan Grant does not receive the praise that he deserves.
Me too, man.
For what he's done for the comic industry and for the American comic industry as well.
Yeah. He did both, didn't he? That's the thing with him. He didn't do one and then do the other. He maintained both. For me,
there's not a comic company that he hasn't, or not of the major comic companies that he hasn't worked for.
Yeah.
He's done everything. I think the reason he perhaps doesn't get called out as much is he doesn't have that landmark piece.
Yeah, I get you.
There's no major book on the shelf where you go, that's the Alan Grant piece. It's a case of it's more than he wrote Batman for a decade.
Fucking years, wasn't it? Yeah, it was.
And was never present there, and most of that was really good. He wrote all sorts of other DC books. He's written, that again held the DC universe together for a long period of time.
Yeah.
As you say, all sorts of stuff for 2000 AD in the Meg, where creating characters left, right, and centre there. But you're left going, what is the what is that piece in the where's the Watchmen, where's the V for Vendetta, where's the
the only thing I will
it's a body of work that's
and there are books that should be that. I think The Last American deserves it. I do. I think that's a great book. I think The Bogeyman was going to happen and then didn't, because don't forget that was a movie as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, shown once.
Yeah. And the other one I really enjoyed and doesn't get talked about enough, I think, is Outcasts. I really like that.
All right, yeah.
I got it.
But and I don't disagree with you. I think all of them are really, really good. But as I say, because he's more of a body of work person.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily get the kudos he perhaps deserves.
I suppose the only one that came near would maybe be Judgment on Gotham. Maybe as an evergreen, but even that I don't know if that's in print now. I don't know.
I have no idea what is and isn't print, but yeah, it's such a thing. But anyway, my point is very much that a lot of the humor in here, which I think we're saying the humor comes from Giffen. Having read D-Men and having read Lobo novels, I think a lot of it comes from Grant. And if you look at but it is very much a British sensibility, that humor of the the dry, dark wit with satire on top.
Yeah, the stuff we saw in Dread, the stuff we saw in Martial Law, the stuff we saw all over the place like that. Yeah, I think you're right, man. Yeah, yeah.
And then the gritty script, the scratchiness of the art from Bisley, but still full-bodied. Again, was all coming out of that 2000 AD background, and the heavy metal background, obviously, that he had as well from a European comic perspective, which I don't think is a background that the American comic artists of the time had in terms of their piece. So to me, it was very much a case of there's a huge amount of British influence actually in this book that meant that Giffen had the idea and the genesis for it and laid out the general plot, but I think the actual lifting of it was very much done in a British sensibility.
Yeah, it does smell of 2000 AD or Toxic. This to me, when I saw it, it could easily have been a strip in Toxic, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Couple of things on Alan Grant. Born in Bristol, believe it or not. Did you know that? 1949. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Look at that. I think he moved very quickly. Got out of England as quickly as he could. I know what your firm are like. Started as an editor at DC Thompson, and then he went to London to work on some IPC romance titles after bumping into John Wagner. He oversaw the merger of 2000 AD and Tornado, interestingly. And then I was boring you with the book that I bought just because I read that he was into neo-tech philosophy, and I bought a book on theosophy, which I can make no sense of whatsoever. Now, I tried last night. I was sending you pictures of it, and you said you become a cult member, and I said no. This is, according to Wikipedia, this is the religion that Alan is into, but it's not a nutty one. It's not a crazy one. I don't understand it, but yeah, like you say, a great writer. Keith Giffen first worked in comics in The Sword and the Star. We have talked about Keith before. Same birthday as me, in 1952. His first story was a text story, Marvel Preview number 4, January 1976. The Sword and the Star. Also co-created Rocket Raccoon. And I actually feel like the style of Giffen, his art style, changed partly due to his experience of working with Bisley. And I think if you look at The Last Cenarian and you look at Lobo's Back, there's a direct line to Giffen's stuff that he did, for example, on Trencher later on.
Yeah, I can see that. Or certainly there's been an influence all the way through. Yeah.
I absolutely love Giffen. I absolutely love him. I had a lovely chat with him in New York once. You must have met him before, dude. Have you? You sort of.
I don't think I have.
Right.
I've got. No, I think he's somebody that has actually passed me by.
Okay. Yeah.
Or it's been one of these ones where the queue's been too long or whatever.
Yeah. He's had his fingers in. He's been behind a lot of stuff when you think about it, like 52, for example, like the Bwahaha stuff. There's a lot of stuff that he's in the background on, or he's I first saw him in the Defender stuff he was doing with David Anthony Kraft, who we sadly lost recently, and then followed him through to the Legion, and he was kind of a bit of his line was, or his style was a bit more in line, house style, straighter, and then he did 5 years later, and I began to notice that change. I've got a page on my wall of it. It's actually from an issue of Justice from the New Universe, believe it or not, that cost me a whole $20. Yeah, can you believe it?
Happy days. Happy days.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, I think before we go, we're gonna pick a couple of favourite moments, I think, from this series. But before we do, there's I wanted to talk about issue 1, the cover. I think is an incredible cover, man. And I know we went eBay searching, didn't we? For you and I were trying to buy bloody waistcoats or something, t-shirts this week, weren't we? And we found and this cover's still being used on t-shirts, isn't it? Did you want to describe it just for people listening?
To be clear, the t-shirt I used to have the Bite Me Fanboy t-shirt, which came out from Lobo's back. But
right.
Again, that would be mid 90s, and let's say I don't fit the same size of t-shirt as I did in the mid 90s. So the opening cover is it's essentially a close up of Lobo's face.
Yeah.
Where he's squinting with one eye and the other eye is properly as wide open as could be.
Yeah.
And his eye is bright red with a tiny, tiny little black dot in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And then he's biting down on his bottom lip, and he's actually broken the skin with that. Now, it's a weird layout of a cover, ever so slightly, in that the face is not centered.
Yeah.
What's essentially at the center of the cover is the tiny little black dot that is the pupil.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where I was going with this. I'd like to take credit for being spotting this, but it's on the kayfabe video about this issue.
Yeah.
They brought my attention to it, but it is your eye is drawn immediately to his eye, which is bang fucking in the middle of this cover, isn't it? Big red eye looking at
and
you.
It's a bright red eye looking straight out at you, and it just creates that presence, and this sort of scowling lines down the nose and stuff, where he's just wanting to go. Is what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's a fuck about to come out of his mouth, isn't there? Yeah.
100%. And it is just that. And I think the subtitle for issue 1 was Portrait of a Psychopath, which I think and it is very much a case of, I think we should say one of the things that throughout the book as well, because they're running this thing about the biography, they've actually got pages from the biography feeds into it.
Yeah. And his psychological report and various things, isn't it? There's a school report in there, and
and one of the early bits in that is the fact that it just comes up with, and the name of evil was Lobo, and that's where it comes from. Yeah,
because it's only since then that we've come to know it's the last Sarnian, because initially it was just kind of Lobo, wasn't it? It was like issue 1 of a miniseries. That's how we saw it. I think it was. Am I right in saying I don't have the single issue in front of me, but it was 99 cents, so it was cheaper, wasn't it? The first issue.
I believe so. Yes. Again, I don't, it's the trade I've got in front of me.
Yeah, and in the world of making noticeable, eye-catching covers, that's got it down, hasn't it? That's brilliant.
Yeah, we've seen the parody thereafter, and when if you do a month of covers where it's just nothing but faces, which they seem to do every decade. This would still stand out as being a proper pick it up off the shelf moment.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to make an admission that when I first read this, I didn't like it. I bought it because I'm a lemming and I buy everything that's popular, but I don't know. It just wasn't the Lobo I was used to. And I wasn't a huge fan of. I had this sort of prejudice against Bisley because he'd sort of taken over from a couple of the black and white artists that I was enjoying on Slain, and I didn't like it. It was too scratchy for me. And I think in it I was seeing things that I'd seen previously on Electra Assassin. I think some of the almost sharply drawn, caricatured faces, like the face of the teacher in this with those glasses. I remember thinking those glasses are straight out of a Sienkiewicz drawing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
I'm sure he's a big influence, but I just
1990. When was? It doesn't say when. I'm trying to find out how old Simon Bisley is, or how old he was when he drew this.
Yeah.
Doesn't say.
No, I'm not sure. But to me, at the time, I don't know why. I mean, I'm a fairly straight-laced fella, and I thought this isn't fucking right. Do you know what I mean? I had a bit of those moments. It was only later that I was glad that I bought them, because I began to appreciate the satirical nature of it, the lampooning nature of it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think certainly rereading it, this past month has been very much. That's what I took from it.
Yeah.
In that, it would have been an unusual book for me to pick up at the time. I've probably been picked up because it had been recommended in the shop as
me too.
Get on this because everybody's getting it, and it's and I would have laughed at the right moments and all that stuff at the time. But there is a second layer to this book, very much so, in terms of what they're trying to get across with it. I certainly wouldn't have picked up I was one of the people who didn't get the parody the first time around and went, yeah, this is what I want. We want a character who's a bit wild and goes around beating people up.
But that was why a lot of kids picked it up, because they just wanted that metal, aspect of it, didn't they?
Oh. Yeah, but rather than reason that was a piss take of the industry at the time and the fact that this was the main characters coming out. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. There's whether you're seeing it as in comics, there's also a bit of Frank Miller-ish
Yes. Yeah.
take in some of those characters in terms of things like the glasses and the approach that's given to
It's definitely a post
biker gang,
post DKR book, isn't it? Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that cultural significance of him that I think we've kind of forgotten. Though it was such a big explosion of a book that I don't know. I sometimes wonder if the corporate memory of comics is too short and people don't remember things. And I don't know, man. We forget what we want to forget sometimes.
And part of it, I think, as well, is about how else things were presented at that point. There was, the convention scene, if you like, of the early 90s was very thin.
Yeah.
If the equivalent was to happen today, you'd see nothing but Lobos dressed up at Comic-Con.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
You would see, and because we never had that, actually, I remember there was one guy at one Bristol dressed up as him. But anyway,
okay.
It's that's what we're missing from this as well in terms of the energy and the corporate memory piece is the fact that we don't remember seeing hundreds of Lobos walking around. We'll always remember the year of the Harley Quinns and the year of the Deadpools.
Exactly.
And go roll our eyes at it and go, well, fair enough, okay. Or go back and look at it in 20 years' time and go, actually, maybe it had something we didn't we missed at the time. So, is there any particular?
No. Let's just pick a couple of favourite bits. I know because we've gone long again, but let's have a think about a couple of moments. Do you want to go first, dude?
So I'm gonna shoot past the fact that there's a bookstore in episode 1 called Blake 7.
Oh, is there? Okay, I missed that. All right. Okay.
And jump to number 2, where he has basically they stop on one of the planets to rest overnight type thing, and he goes off to use the phone to call over old Ox, and the teacher leaves the room and gets taken by one of the people who's supposed to be guarding her to the Pan-Galactic Demolition Dance Company.
How Douglas Adams is that? That's just it's like the Pan-Galactic Gargle Factory and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Is it miss 'em and weep, see 'em and die happy? And so this
I think you're about to steal my favourite page, by the way. So let's keep going. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that this whole sequence of Lobo going, "My God, we've gone to the ballet," right? And he's basically hunting her down.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the ballet is actually a chainsaw massacre.
Yep.
Or it's a ballet with chainsaws, and the purpose of it is to they want to kill various other people in the ballet, and that is the form of entertainment. And suddenly Lobo flips on a dime and goes, "Well, I wasn't going to watch the ballet, but actually this is pretty good."
Yeah.
And that and the whole sequence again, this is violence, just to be gratuitous and nothing else.
Yeah, it's clearly set up. It's basically the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a ballet, and he sort of arrives in the middle of it. That's kind of the perfect joining of two things, isn't it? Yeah.
And there's a weird change of art style in the middle of that as well.
There is, with much flatter background colour as well. Yeah,
and it's a much slightly cleaner line as well.
Okay.
I think in terms of the way that he draws the ballet dancers.
Yeah.
So again, whether that's more Giffen than Bisley, that particular piece, that's just really interesting. So as I love that whole sequence, partially because it sums up the whole premise of Lobo going, you know what, I was going to, kill everybody here, but actually I'm enjoying this because they're killing everybody here, and I'll sit back and enjoy it for entertainment's sake.
Yeah. The thing I noticed most about this is the facial acting is spot on. It's good throughout the book, but this sequence particularly, and the moment you've gone about, when he suddenly decides to do it and he says, nice moves and messy, maybe I should sit around and enjoy this a while. Just brilliant facial acting. Really great throughout that page. And Bisley adds movement into panels. So there's a couple of sort of head swings round and the colorist and the art allows for that, It's a really interesting there's almost a pop art element to some of this with the
Well,
clapping and
yeah, I was going to say, and it's all done in, obviously Lobo himself's generally black and white and blues and dark blues, but everything else is bright pinks and bright oranges and bright purples, and
even the sound effects.
Really,
yeah.
And I think the thing that then gets really funny with it is it's not just Lobo that's enjoying it, but he gets involved in fighting with a couple of people, and the audience, who have obviously know what they've gone to see, actually start cheering him on as well.
Yeah.
And I think it ends up with, is it the last page of no, it's not even the last page of that episode, where he's basically carrying the teacher out of the auditorium, and there's one of the guys looking through the rubble, and going, magic, pure magic.
Yeah, like a sort of really creepy theatre critic, sort of,
yes.
yeah.
But it's going, but this has been nothing but death and destruction, and it's been perfect in terms of how it's been presented. And that's, as I say, to me, that just really is a great summary of the whole book of just being absurd and just going beyond, seeing where the limit is, going beyond the limit, and just just kind of boundary push. Yeah, again, there's no crass in any of this.
Yeah,
this is where I think it would go wrong today, in that we still get books that have excessive amounts of violence, but it then loses something else with it, because it will go. They can F and blind if they want. It doesn't really bother me in some ways, but in other ways, you're like going, you know what? To trying to keep that balance, where you can turn around and say, yeah, this is mainstream because there's no swearing in it, but and then go, oh, so you don't care about the violence, but you do care if we swear. And I'm sure there was something of that to me as part of this satire bit, where you start to build up going, you know what? You're willing for us to have people have their heads cut off with chainsaws, but if they call them an F or a C, you'd have put asterisks in to take it out as an editor.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, he's. Yeah, no, I agree, man. Yeah, and the thing is, you root for him. You want him to succeed. You actually like. He's the most dislikable person in the world, but you like him. That's how it works for me. Now, this was one of my favourite moments as well. So I had picked this out, and I'd written it in my notes to mention this one, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, for everything you've said, clearly. But the other thing is, the woman he has gone to collect, his fourth grade, whatever, his school teacher, is a granny. But he beats the shit out of her all the time. He sort of offhand knocks her out in one of these moments, which I think may be one of the reasons that we don't see a return to this story. But and one of my favourite double pages is the page where he says "wimps" on. The one where you've got magic, pure magic. Yeah. And it's framed really weirdly. It's a strange page with he's in the bottom, just over a third, I'm going to say. To the right hand side, you've got a big pile of bodies, and to the left hand side, you've got. Is it a wall that's fallen over? It's a weird one, isn't it? And then looking through the hole. To
me, it's more like the grand circle or something like that has collapsed down from above, or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, and
right in the middle of the page, you've got the word "wimps." Now, anyone who knows anything, if you're going to put a word balloon on a page, you do not put it right in the middle of the art. But here, strangely, it really works, doesn't it? It just works completely. It's the page is in three parts, and that word "wimps" is right at the intersection of the three parts for me. And I think it's just a gorgeous page. And another bit of great facial acting, as on the previous with the Last Dance, anyone. That's another bit of facial acting that's brilliant. And all of this was slowly building up in the first few issues of a new series of a character who is kind of new in a way, new origin, new approach. This is what all the fanboys will be latching on to me. They'll be showing their mates in the comic shop. They'll be showing their mates, in high school, in the pub, that sort of thing. Look at this, and this is why I think clearly this story is why we get the momentum that follows through for probably 10 years. I'm going to say maybe slightly less. On him, and they've put their stamp on it. And I know that Bisley is a hard man to pin down. One of the reasons I find him a little bit irritating is because he's in his own admissions, he's quite lazy. And we would have had some more ABC Warriors out of him, and we should have had more of this out of him, and we should have had more Slain out of him, and all this sort of shit the dog. Even we should have had more shit the dog out of him, But it just doesn't seem to be. I looked at his I was looking at one. Weirdly, I got added to a Facebook group today. It shows that the computers are listening to us. You know this theory that, or the phone's listening to us. It knows what we're doing. And I got added to a group called. Oh, where is it? This is it. I get sent so many stupid jokes during the day. That's fantastic illustrated the Berserker comic art page on Facebook. You remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I do actually.
Yeah,
it's a weird one. Yeah,
yeah, and he's got this sort of sketchbook out, and there's a lot of pictures on it. I think, come on, Biz, you could do a bit better than that, mate. I hate to say it, but he knows where his market is, I suppose.
Yeah, we may come back to everyone's got a Bisley story.
Yes.
At some point.
Yeah. So that's also one of my favourites, man. What was your next one?
Well, I was going to say, just a couple of pages after that is one of the greatest throwaway sort of jokes, right? Where it kind of cuts away the story, and then it cuts back to the fact that he's got on the bike and he's flying off to the next planet with her on the back of the bike, right? And the opening line in that panel is, "They'll grow back."
I know, Christ.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, remember, he's trying to keep hold of this teacher, and the reason that she's gone off to do these other things while he's been away doing it, so he's cut off her legs.
Yeah.
Now, there's no mention of this cut other than the fact that she suddenly goes, "They'll grow back," and suddenly you look down and go, "Yeah, she's got stumps for legs," and you're like going, "Okay."
He's cut a granny's legs off.
And
I mean, I've done some things in my life. Do you know what I mean? I've never done that.
Yeah. But so yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that feeds back into our theory about they probably won't do another decent Lobo, will they?
Well,
think of the Mary Sue or the Bleeding Cool or someone going on about that.
Couldn't do this. No.
Yeah.
Moving through then. So moving episode number 3 has probably you're talking about Douglas Adams earlier. I think this is probably a Hitchhiker's moment,
right?
Where basically they have a spelling bee.
Yeah. Who the fuck come up with that shit? You know what I mean? In the middle of a spelling bee. Let's go, which he takes part in and cheats.
Well, initially he's given all the words that he could possibly spell from.
That's it. Yeah, he kind of gets away with it. Yeah.
Explosions and
genocide.
But you're right. He winds up all the people around him and makes them have errors. But again, to me, that fully feels like a Hitchhiker sort of set of gags.
And if again, you go to the last page of that, man, while we're talking about that, before he gets the page before he gets sort of manacled up, you've got it's a multi-panel page. It's a 9-panel page. The bottom centre, the teacher, pure Sienkiewicz for me.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah. Wow, very much so.
Yeah. Cool. I'd like to just volunteer the relationship. So, firstly, the relationship between him and the teacher is genius. But I actually really enjoy, and perhaps you shouldn't do it. It's not the primary function of these to enjoy them, because they give the story out. They push the story on. And the moments between him and Vril Dox. There's a great one which is he shows on a screen back at the headquarters all the people who are chasing him. Ken is where Legion is based, and Lobo's on his way there, and you've got the trucker convoy, the Sons of Lobo, the Juanita police SWAT team, Legion of Decency, all headed towards him. But what it does, from a story that could be considered to be a bit crazy and a bit all over the place, because Bisley's drawn it, you get this encapsulation of the story and what's happening very cleverly, all done with Vril Dox, who is at odds at the best of times with Lobo. And I just really like that page. And it's done in a nice way. It's done, again, very few colours are used in the page, but you get that a darker outline to it, and in the centre of it you get this map. And I really like the way he does that. And I really, really enjoyed the relationship between the two, because they don't meet until the very end, but they are always speaking to each other on holo screens and all this sort of thing, aren't they? And it's a really good capture of character.
I was going to say, because one of the other bits that I'd written down to definitely share was if you actually turn to page 20 of issue 3.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is a bit that is, again, the layout here is not a Bisley layout. This is a Giffen layout.
Yeah.
This is basically they've lost contact with Lobo, and Dox doesn't really know where he is, and he's waiting to hear.
Oh yeah.
And you've got bottom half the page is 6 panels, and for 5 of those panels, he's just sitting, brooding, and quietly staring. And there's a doorway behind him that's blank, and it's only when one of the other characters from Legion turns up at the window to go, he's online, and it suddenly Dox jumps in the life. But that, again, as a break to the pacing, is brilliant.
Yeah,
because everything's manic, and suddenly you've got I'm waiting to hear, I'm waiting to hear, I'm waiting to hear. And to repeat that 5 times and to it slows everything down and building a tension point that just.
You're right, man. As well, if you look at stuff like 5 years later, Giffen uses these multiple panel pages like this. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a good shout.
That's definitely a Giffen layout.
Yeah, I part of me wonders whether Giffen did it to just speed up Bisley. Do you know what I mean?
Possible.
Yeah, it's a good shout.
Possible.
The cover to issue 4 was recently. It's recently gone up for sale as well. We were looking at that earlier in the week, weren't we? There's a couple of pages gone up. Yeah. Okay.
Sadly, I'll wait to see what this year's.
My friend.
I'll wait and see what this year's bonus is.
Yeah. Or burglary.
It's when the narrator steps in and goes, his bonus was not going to be big enough for that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Anything else you want to mention in that issue, Matt? Or that in series?
Not in issue 4. No, the last bit I want to really mention. Yeah. Well, 2 tiny bits from issue 4. One is, I'm the pilot, let me out. Which is a running gag through the opening sequences of issue 4. Basically, the Lobo ends up on a party planet because he's bored and he says he needs to take some time off before he completes the message. Yeah. And then he decides he wants to blow up the party planet, and everybody else is trying to get off it. And then there's the biggest kick of satire piece in this. So for this whole storyline, he's being chased by the Legion of Decency.
Yeah.
Right. And they've not cared about all the violence that's been involved in. All they care about is the fact that there's this disgusting biography that's been written, and the book needs to be dealt with. And they are just about to catch up with him and the writer when they're on the party planet, and they suddenly spot that there's a XXX section on the party planet.
There's a shop called Shag.
And they stop everything to say, right, we'll have to go deal with that instead. And that, to me, is a perfect summation of a certain part of America and the UK, where it's that whole, oh yes, you can, we don't mind people fighting, we don't mind this and that, but you can't have sex on television before 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's that one. What? But you're okay with them cutting people's heads off? And that's the brilliant twist piece for me. Yeah, that's on there.
And there's a couple of very English bits in those 2 pages. So there's obviously a shop called Shag, and I'm guessing at that point they hadn't had Austin Powers, so they didn't know what Shag meant in America. And also he wears a badge, doesn't he, at that point, called the Tom Jones Appreciation Society, but it's in the shape of a Judge Dredd badge as well.
Yes, very much. That's clearly a Dredd point there.
Over a Watchman badge, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a record behind him that's propped up onto the karaoke thing, which I think is supposed to be a Des O'Connor.
Short for Desperate.
Yeah.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Which, but and again, that's some of the bits of the British humour that you wouldn't get otherwise. So yeah, all told, is it the book that's going to change your life to read? Is it something you're going to sit back and ponder and think about, like we did with some of the enemy ace piece?
No, it's fun though, isn't it?
This is fun. This is just unadulterated. Let's get in and enjoy ourselves and be really, have some proper chippy humour while we're at it and get in with it. And as I say, you're right. Culturally, this is a really important book as far as that time period was, and what
this leads into Image. Don't forget, we had the Image revolution after this. Yeah.
Well, I said to you, one of the other books that I'd read, because I've got the Lobo slipcase.
Yeah.
And it comes with, so it's got 3 books in it. The Last Caesarian, Lobo's Greatest Hits, which is essentially all of a number of the early stories.
Okay.
But those early stories have got joining pages between them. It's kind of done as a choose your own adventure. So,
right.
And if you look at the people that did the joining pages, so these are pages done just for the trade.
Yeah.
And it's Eric Larson, it's Kevin O'Neill, Bart Sears, Ty Templeton, Barry Kitson, Val Zemeckis, and on it goes.
Yeah.
It's like, these are the so it's kind of a who's who of who would come next and be, the next sort of a lot of the next big things. Chris Sprouse is in here.
I love Chris Sprouse's work. Yeah, yeah.
But you've also got, it's also Tim Truman and Tom Mandrake. And,
Oh wow.
And all these, it's just like the odd page to join a bit of a storyline from an Amiga Men piece to a Justice League International page to whatever.
Yeah.
So it's all in there. Now, the other great thing that's in the slipcase is the Prestige format collection of The Wisdom of Lobo.
Oh, okay.
Which I'll sit and read it to you just now if you like.
Go on. Nicely done. Good bit of comic timing there. Yeah.
All read out for you. So a completely blank Prestige format book, which again is just how do you get away with that?
Yeah.
But so that was Lobo.
That's good. Just a couple of mentions before I have a short rant and we talk a bit about you. Is the other things in the I've got a couple of versions. I've got the issues. I've got the Titan reprint. I think I mentioned earlier, and I've got the Lobo. They've started releasing out all of his stuff, and I've got in the Titan book. There's an intro done by Robert Sheckley, believe it or not, who I had read some stuff as a kid. He's a sci-fi writer, and I went back and bought. I don't know if you've seen my Instagram recently, Alan, but I bought Dimensions of Miracles by Robert Sheckley, which my dog then ate. So if you go to my Instagram, you will see a chewed up copy of that book on there.
Your dog doesn't like mazes. That's what I said.
Exactly. Yeah, and he's a bastard. And it's also got a few pages of sort of just sketches. They look like a lot of sketches on a page, almost like a doodle of a few pages. And in it, it's got Batman, and it's got Superman as well. A very tiny little sketch of Superman, top left-hand corner, which is quite interesting. And obviously, Lobo and Superman became sort of quite intertwined at one point, didn't they? They were friends, stroke sparring partners, stroke enemies. Sort of things that happened. Good choice, man. Good choice. I want to slightly rant as part of the research. I bought Crush and Lobo issue 1, which came out this year. I think came out a couple of weeks ago. And it is absolutely and utterly proof that Lobo is too much for writers currently working at DC, or some of them. It's written by Mariko Tamaki, and it's mostly, to be fair, about Crush, who is, as I understand it, a member of the Teen Titans now. Is that right? I think that's right.
I'm not up to date with Teen Titans either. I really am.
I asked my son. He said that's the case.
Can produce some nice books. I've got,
Yeah. Is she suited for a Lobo book? I'm going to say no. But maybe that's not her thing. Maybe she's more suited to a Crush book. The Crush book is about the daughter in a relationship. She's worrying about meeting her girlfriend's parents and about what she's going to wear. It's about selfies and it's about fashion. And it so happens that Lobo FaceTimes with her. Yes, I know. And is in a prison getting therapy. Now, I read this, and as I go along and read stuff, I have notebooks. I don't know if you're like, I have like a notebook and I make the odd note just because I forget stuff because I'm old. And I couldn't bring myself to write anything down because it was so, and the only thing I have written is fucking atrocious across the page. And as you know, I then tweeted at DC asking if I could have my money back.
And did you get a reply?
I got no replies, but it got liked 20 times, which is a lot for me. Good. I thought I'd mention that. Also, I know you're a huge fan of when he became a goth, and it was actually a different character who then killed, in the first issue, killed the original Lobo. It was so bad, even DC went, nah.
I was going to say, and this is, Lobo is this great missed opportunity for DC. He could have been. The problem, there was a bit of oversaturation, I suppose, during the 90s, but this is always the case with these things.
Yeah.
But he should have been the lead of a movie or whatever. But no, it was never to be.
Yeah,
so.
It should be a Black Label series now. Okay, so who would you like to see drawing it now? Should I say my choice and give you a bit of thinking time? I'm going to say Liam Sharp.
Yeah, actually, I would.
I'd read that. I like Liam's stuff.
Yeah. You know what? Liam could write it.
Yeah.
As well, based on the quality of Green Light. He knows how to do a space adventure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I was at the convention where Liam and Bisley almost got into a fight with each other at the
good.
bar.
That sounds good.
But,
I wouldn't put my money on Bisley around that, to be fair.
no,
I was a betting man. Yeah.
Liam's a big unit.
He is, yeah.
But no, you know what? Again, the thing is, Lobo, it doesn't need to be the rendered, finished artwork. I'm trying, because people like Val Zemeckis, who did the art in the actual ongoing series for ages, that was great.
Yeah.
And I could see anybody in that sort of style. It needs to be a little bit comedic and a little bit.
Yeah, Byrne could get away with it,
Off. Yeah. Off kilter. I said to you the other day that you look at some of the artists that did them previously, and they're some of them are where are they now? Carl Crutchlow was one of the people.
Yeah, I remember you saying you got a double page spread from that, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be good from that sort of side. We could also give it to some of our more local colleagues. Ian Ashcroft's looking for that.
Yeah, he could draw that, couldn't he?
Title in the States, but yeah, let's let Ian Ashcroft be the man to get
Gareth
it.
Slater, be all right.
Yeah. Actually, all these people. As I don't, he is a character that doesn't need a particular style.
Yeah.
He could take any of those things and run with it. One of the other things that's in that slipcase is they did a set of postcards, and it's everybody from Sergio Aragonés, who's he's drawn in Sergio's style. That's exactly the way it is.
Yeah.
To Mike McCone, who's drawn him basically looking a little bit John Bon Jovi.
Okay.
But you've also got P. Craig Russell, and you're thinking P. Craig Russell shouldn't be drawing.
Yeah, he draws operas, doesn't he? P. Craig Russell. Yeah.
But again, it works. So he's a durable character that could fit into any of these styles. I think that you're right. The writing's much more important than the particular art style to run with it. But
give it to someone like Johnny Ryan, or when these underground guys who do nut stuff and have got a bit of imagination and aren't feeling too restrained by writing for the trade or something. It's
Baudet would be an option actually. On
who? Sorry, mate.
Baudet, the guy that did.
Oh yeah.
We talked about. And did Turtles recently. Would be. Yeah. Again, completely different, but would have that edge to it that would be just create something to be a bit life with it.
Can I just quickly say as well, Mike McCone, please come back to comics. I do love seeing your commissions, but I love your comics more. I know you're probably doing better financially from your commissions, but please come back. Yeah, his work on stuff like the Exiles and stuff was just superb. Oh, yeah. But his commissions are amazing, aren't they? Yeah, I watch them. But I don't think they're cheap. Have you got one of his?
Not commissioned, no. I got a sketch of him, but that again, that would be. I don't know which con it would have been at. It would be somewhere in the States.
Yeah, mine was about 6 years ago, and I got a black and white Exo off him, like an original Exo Man of War off him. Lovely, but yeah, back when it was more affordable, I think. Oh well. Anyway,
yeah.
There's a
and actually two sketches of him. One of them was a Mr. Flopsy Wopsy. There we go.
You got a sketch from Alan Grant telling you not to buy more comics.
Well, no, he didn't. I've got a sketch from Alan Grant where I met him and Mrs. H was with me, so I got him to write on the page, "I'm sorry, it's all my fault," Alan Grant, because I'd said it was Alan Grant's fault was I had so many comics.
Yeah.
Now he did that in 2001. I have bought one or two comics since then.
I know.
So if I had too many back in 2001, God, and having written that, he then actually drew a sketch of himself and a mini Batman and a mini Judge Dredd.
That's right.
In very sort of loose, rough terms, but it's great. And that, so yeah, I've got an apology from Alan Grant, and I've got an IOU from John Wagner. He owes me one pen. Again, it's that classic signing sketch, or where you turn up and he goes, "Somebody lend me a pen," and I went, "Yeah, fine, as long as you write me an IOU."
Oh, nice. That's good.
That was a nice way to get a sketch, or get a signature of somebody.
Oh, they're both great blokes, aren't they? Yeah, I'm a big fan of both of them guys. Yeah. It's I think Alan's suffering a bit with his eyes, isn't he? As I understand it, but such a stalwart. His
overall health isn't great.
Yeah, I used to shop in a comic shop in Colchester in Essex when I was working nearby, and he was always in there doing sign-ins and stuff and chatting. And I have a great memory of him at a convention. I've repeated this, I think. Whereas I won't name the person, but a certain person came on with his minder at UCAC and said, don't bother me in the toilet. I'll be doing signings. Only bother me. Don't talk to me on the stairs and all this sort of thing. And then Alan Grant came out on his own and said, I'm here for you. If you want to speak to me, just speak to me. And he got like a cheer. And I thought, nah, that's the dude. That's right. Yeah.
As they having been to the convention that he and his wife put on a couple of times in Moniai, the village that they live in. The first did it after the foot and mouth piece. And you're right, it was just, let's just all sit around and chat or do whatever. And the amount of time that he spent talking with the kids at that as well was just wonderful.
He did a comic during lockdown, didn't he? He did, I was up in Scotland when it was on television. He did like a special comic, didn't he? Again,
in the village, basically, they got that sort of village community element set up, and he sponsored, because he lives in the mansion that Batman built, is the way that it's
right, okay.
Because it's one of these middle of nowhere, but it's the big house.
Oh, nice.
But it's all the Batman money from 1990s. And that was it was a running gag for a long period of time.
Oh, cool. Good shout, man. Excellent. Good. A little bit about you before we close off, because we've gone long again. But what have you been up to, man? So I think you did send me a screenshot earlier. Did you want to mention what that was? Yeah.
So while it's a couple of weeks away before it will be published online, I scanned and did what needed doing to Strip 2000 today. So it's now sitting on the laptop as Strip 2000. I feel I can pack up and go home.
Yeah, job done. You're going to keep going after that one, aren't you?
Yeah, for the time being. As I say, I don't know what the end is. I've got a view that it should either have a proper ending, or one day I'll just stop and see how long it is before anybody notices. But no, so the Penguin continues on.
Man. That's great.
And will be what it is.
Yeah, excellent. And are you doing anything else at the moment, or?
No, I'm looking forward to tomorrow night's Drunken Draw. For those that are listening on, or tonight's Drunken Draw, if you publish it on Friday morning.
Yeah, I'll be sticking out tonight, so it's Thursday today. So most people will listen tomorrow, I think. Yeah, so it'll be tonight. So come along, go to the Facebook group and get the link, or the Twitter. Ask one of us on there, and we'll send it to you. And come along. It's always a jolly chat. You got a buddy coming, haven't you? You said to me. Yeah,
hopefully. So one of the guys I hang about with at cons and stuff, who hasn't been doing these things before, was saying, "Can anyone come along?" I was saying, "Well, it's a public invite, so anyone can come along."
We're quite friendly. We don't bite, do we?
Come and join us. Yeah. So I think we need more Scots at that Drinking Draw.
All I do is talk to Scottish people now. Yeah. That's all I do. You, Dave, Mr. Stewart, Tom,
John O as well.
Yeah. He should have been on last week, but we had Johnny Cannon, but we had the football, so we missed it. And then it's Father's Day. John always been on. Yeah, he's secretly a Scottish person, isn't he? Yeah.
No, he is a Scottish person, but I'm living it. I'll let him know.
I know.
He'll be sharpening his axe.
Yeah, he will be. Yeah. And what else you reading at the moment? Anything else you've been enjoying recently, or?
So I'm slowly working my way through Mind Management. By Matt Clint.
Yeah.
And it's a bit heavy going at times, but it goes in waves for me for that. So that's a sort of something different.
I've got the first hardback of that, and I've been meaning to read it for a long time. I bought it because I was going to go to this Gosh reading group thing, and then I couldn't make it, and I never ended up reading it. So I must read that as well, I think.
As I said, I recommend it. It's just that I think I'm on book. I'm doing the hardbacks as well. I think I'm on book 5, but it's not that I've read the last 4. It's been a couple of years in the making to get to book 5. It's read a book and then leave it for a while, and then read a book and then leave it for a while.
For enjoyment, my friend. That's it. We shouldn't push it, should we? Yeah. It's like all these people who rush to read monsters, and I thought, no, I'm going to take my time reading that. I think that's all right.
Yeah. And there's a lot to read on every page.
It is. Yeah, definitely. There really is. Good. And where can we find your links? Where can we find you, dude?
So if you want to find me, I'm at Penguin on basically every form of social media. So on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, and Instagram, and that's probably the best way to get me. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. And we did discuss what we're going to talk about in about a month. Did you want to say what that's going to be?
Well, I'll just summarise it as it'll probably feature a nun, a clown, and a fez.
Good, like it. And maybe the odd Muppet.
You've given it away.
For me, thanks to everyone who bought Atomic Hercules, Weapon of Mass Destruction. You will have discovered what that weapon is by now. Thanks for that. And you can also follow Fame, which is me and Demetrius Zach, for the next 2 weeks on Patreon if you go to patreon.com/Tribute Press. After that, we will be throwing ourselves into Flesh and Ink, a new story by me and Adam, which will initially go on Patreon. Thanks, I know you're a patron of ours, and it'll be going on to Patreon before being released as a printed book once a month. So that's the plan. We've got 2 months in the bag, so we're doing all right. So I was just speaking to Adam at lunchtime about BDSM nuns. So that's what you do at lunchtime, innit? That's how the chats go. Good stuff. Thanks for listening, and see you next time. Cheers, Al.